Welcome to Autism Knows No Borders, a podcast where people connected to autism inspire change and build community. Together with the Global Autism Project, I'm your host, Rachel Harmon, a professional with over a decade of experience in the field of autism services, outreach, and advocacy. Do you know any recently diagnosed autistic women trying to figure out what support they need? This episode is part 2 of my conversation with Olivia Hops, a late-diagnosed autistic self-advocate and YouTuber from California. She talks about how she's learned to manage anxiety and meltdowns since receiving her autism diagnosis. Among other things, we discuss selective mutism during meltdowns, the importance of coping mechanisms and support systems, Olivia's autistic strengths, resources for other autistic business owners, and tips for newly diagnosed autistic females. In this episode, discover what's possible when you mix your own batter. And now I present you Olivia Hops. So in one of your YouTube videos, you talk about, I think it was the one about childhood traits. So you talked about selective mutism when having a meltdown. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes. So before I was diagnosed, I would have these, what I thought were temper tantrums, which were meltdowns. I would not be able to speak. And, I'd have my mom or whoever ask me what was wrong, and I couldn't tell her. And it felt like the words were literally stuck in my throat. Like they were there. I wanted to say something, but it didn't come out. And so when I was doing all my research for autism and autism traits, I came across selective mutism, which is basically just what it sounds. Is sometimes we go mute and we can't talk. And a lot of times this happens in a meltdown or a shutdown because when we're going through those things, our brain is so overwhelmed and it's just focusing on the very most important tasks. So breathing, simple things. It's not worried about talking. And so that we can lose our sense to talk. And it can be really frustrating for both the person who has selective mutism and the person trying to ask what's wrong. So for me, I now don't try to fight it because that just makes it worse. Just, if you're going mute, that's okay. But have a way to communicate. So I always say that even though I can't physically speak, I can text or I can email or I can write. So if, you want to tell your loved one who may be with you during a meltdown and you need to communicate, like point at your throat. My therapist told me to do this. Point at your throat to let your loved one know you can't talk. And then if you need to communicate, have them get you a pen and paper or a phone or tablet or computer, whatever it is, so that you can communicate what you need to communicate. But yeah, that's basically what it is. It was so confusing and annoying because I didn't understand what was going on, but that's what it is. And so as still annoying as it is, there are ways to combat it by just allowing it to happen, just let the person know you can't talk and then communicate in a written form.
How long does it last?
It depends. I'm sure it depends on the person as well. For me, when I'm getting up to a meltdown, I'm on a verge of a meltdown, is usually when it starts. And then when I'm going through the meltdown, it lasts however long the meltdown is. And then when I'm coming out of the meltdown, it still can kind of linger. And so it just depends on, how long the meltdown is. But I'd say it happens in all 3 stages, the build up, the during, and a little bit into the after.
Okay. And a meltdown can range from minutes to hours or? Okay.
Yeah, again, it completely depends on the person. I've heard people say they've had meltdowns for days, actually. For me, it kind of depends on the situation and how overwhelmed my brain is. But they usually last, I'd say, maybe 30 minutes. And even when the meltdown is over, I'm then in recovery phase, and that can take days or weeks to recover from a meltdown because my brain is so exhausted. And I also feel a lot of guilt and embarrassment, which is absolutely, you should not feel guilt or embarrassment. This is something I have to work on because you can't control it. I do a whole video too on tips on how to recover from a meltdown. So just briefly, I like to watch my favorite TV shows or movies because our brains can predict what's going to happen since we know them so well. And that's very soothing and comforting to our brains. And just make sure you get a lot of rest, eat your favorite foods, listen to your favorite music, just stuff that makes you happy. And that isn't going to make you any more exhausted than you already are to allow your brain to heal.
Yeah, that makes sense. What have you identified as some of your triggers that lead up to a meltdown?
So the main trigger of leading up to a meltdown is usually stress for me. When I know I'm running out of time to do something or I have a lot of stuff to do, I can sometimes just kind of turn off and I'm done. I can't function anymore. Rather than trying to break it down into little things, my brain will start thinking of like the big picture, like, oh my goodness, I have, hundreds of orders to do, where I could just be thinking like, we're going to make this batch of cookie dough and that's what you're going to do. And then we'll check it off. So definitely stress. I know a lot of people, meltdowns can occur from being overstimulated. So loud noises, bright lights, things like that, certain smells, textures, and those definitely can, I'd say, help in the cause of the meltdown. I'm not sure I've ever had a meltdown solely on a sense. I say maybe when I was really little, loud noises could cause me to have meltdowns because I have really sensitive hearing. But usually now it's like the perfect storm of like being really anxious and then like hearing loud noise or smelling something that's really hard for me to stand, or having, a tag start rubbing me the wrong way or something on my clothing. So those are, at least from what I've heard, usually the two main things is stress. Oh, also change, like in a routine or something that can cause me to have a meltdown. So if like I knew like, okay, I was going to be going to my doctor appointment on this day at this time and that changes, that can sometimes cause me to have a meltdown as well.
Okay, got it. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
What are your strengths related to autism?
Oh, that's a good one. So I'd say absolutely it's my ability to dive into a subject and become hyper focused on it. Anything I've ever put my mind to, I have accomplished. And I really truly mean that. The only thing that I have wanted to do that I've not accomplished is keep a plant alive. I cannot for the life of me keep a plant alive. But every other thing that I've wanted to do, I've been able to hyper focus on, learn and teach myself what I needed to know, and was able to accomplish it. And that's absolutely my like autistic superpower, is being able to do that. And I love to tell people that phrase, like, you can do anything you put your mind to, because I'm a firm believer in that. And, I was able to get a job at the NFL Network at 18 years old without ever having to go to college. And, I have to remind myself that that's a really cool thing that I accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because I was able to hyper focus on, I'm going to become a journalist and that's that. I'm going to get it done. And so, I was able to learn everything I needed to through internships and stuff, and just be very hyper focused in whatever topic I was really interested in. I also was hyper focused on learning how to build furniture. And now I build furniture in my spare time. Not right now because wood's very expensive, but
Okay.
a couple years ago I did. So, and I know I've heard from so many other autistic people who this is also their superpower, just being able to hyper focus and get things done and really become like a master at whatever our interest is at the time.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, how did you go from being a journalist and building furniture to starting your own cookie dough business?
Yes. So, as I mentioned, I wanted to be a sports journalist, sports reporter, and I got my dream job. I really wanted to work at the NFL Network. That's one of my special interests is football. And I was super obsessed with football, played football, wrote about football, did everything. Everything was related to football. And I thought that was my dream job. But when I got there, I didn't like it. And one of the reasons was because they hired too many people for the amount of work that needed to be done. And so there was a lot of downtime. And when I'm bored, I get anxious and then I get depressed. And it's like this very vicious cycle. And I couldn't understand why I hated going to work every day. And obviously now I know I am autistic, but that was 6 years prior to knowing that. And so I realized that because like I mentioned, I need that downtime and I need those rests to be able to recharge and function properly. And again, I didn't understand at the time, but now that I do, I knew that having that, 9 to 5 was never going to work for me because it just made me too anxious and I just couldn't handle the social interactions because it just drained my battery so fast. And so even without knowing I was autistic and really why I couldn't hold down a job, I was like, I need to be my own boss. That's the only way I think I'm going to be able to get through life is I need to be my own boss. And I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My grandpa had his own business. My dad has his own business. My mom, she doesn't have her own business, but she was a toy rep for many, many years. So she was able to have flexible hours and make her own schedule. And I grew up with a dad that could take a day off to go to Disneyland whenever he wanted and take a month off in the summer to go to Italy if he wanted. And that was another thing I didn't like about having to punch a clock. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to like be in on at certain times and I can't just take a day off when I want and really needed for my mental state. And so I decided I need to be my own boss. And then I needed to figure out what that was going to entail. And one of my special interests growing up was baking. And I had actually made a little baking business when I was 16 because I wanted a puppy and he was $900. So I started just selling to friends and family and just word of mouth. And so I thought I would try to start that up again. And I was 19 at the time. And there was way too many other people trying to do the same thing in the Los Angeles market because that's where I was living at the time. It was too saturated. So then I really loved cookie dough and I was still trying I needed to start working because my bank account was dwindling very quickly. And I was in Cold Stone Creamery and I thought, this would be a really cool idea if this was like cookie dough that you could eat and you could pick your base dough flavor and your toppings to be mixed into it. And so it just kind of stuck in my head. And I started asking people, do you like cookie dough? Would you eat cookie dough? And most people said, yeah. And so I was like, I'm going to try it. I have nothing to lose and I need to start making money. So I did all the research and got all my licenses and came up with recipes and created a website and logo and names and everything. And I launched in April 2015. And it was slow go at first, but it ended up catching on and becoming a really big success. And it's allowed me to make a living as an autistic adult and keep my anxiety level low. And that's been just such a huge blessing because if I wasn't able to do that and I needed to work a regular, desk job or something, I don't know where I would be right now. I think I would be very, very depressed and very anxious. So allowing myself to be my own boss and have the freedom to work when I want and how hard has been incredible. But so that's how I made that full 180 from sports to cookie dough.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, congratulations on
Oh, thank
finding
you.
your passion for now. So just to be clear, so it's cookie dough that's edible.
Yeah, so people like to be like, all cookie dough is edible, and that's 100% true. But I like to call mine safe to eat because there's no egg in it. So,
Right. That was my question. Okay.
yes, there's no egg in it, so there's no risk of getting salmonella or anything. Does that stop me from eating like regular cookie dough when I'm baking actual cookies? No, but it does allow me to sell it and ship it nationwide.
Right. Right. So that's why it's called unbaked because you can just eat it straight from the packaging.
Yes, it's meant to just be eaten with a spoon. It is very versatile. You can do so many different things with it. You can use it as frosting on a cupcake, a filling in a cake, make cookie dough truffles out of it, mix it into ice cream. I mean, the possibilities are really endless. The only thing you can't do with it is actually bake it.
Okay. So what would happen if you do? Just burn?
it would melt because it's butter based. Yeah, it's butter based. And there's nothing to, make it rise and leaven in the oven. There's no baking soda or baking powder or egg. So what does butter do when it gets hot? It just melts. So you just have a big mess in your oven if you tried to bake it.
It's like cookie dough soup.
Yes, cookie dough soup. Absolutely. And people have done that on accident. And so now I have big, giant letters on the packaging that says "Do not bake" to make sure people don't get cookie dough soup.
Yep. What are some of your favorite flavors?
So the most popular flavor and one of my favorite flavors is cake batter. And that's really the flavor that started it all, because when I would go to Cold Stone Creamery, I loved the cake batter cookie dough because it tasted literally like real cake batter. And so I wanted to create a recipe that tasted basically like the cookie dough version of that. I wanted it to taste like real cake batter, like you were licking the bowl when making a cake. And I was able to accomplish that. And that was really what started it all, was making that flavor. And that's by far the most popular flavor, one of my favorite flavors. But if I had to say my absolute favorite flavor, it would be candy cane. It's just a really yummy, like light minty flavor. And I love mint. So yeah, so I really love that. So that's only a holiday one. So every year when that comes around, I get excited. But my top 3 flavors would be candy cane, cake batter, and peanut butter.
Oh, peanut butter sounds delicious.
Yes. Oh yes, peanut butter is really good. Peanut butter is great because it's not as sweet as the other ones, and it's just like really rich and creamy and peanut buttery. So yeah, I always tell people, if you like peanut butter, you absolutely have to get that one.
You're making me hungry now, Olivia.
I know it's lunchtime where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Rachel here. I'd like to thank one of our listeners, Izzy0826, for reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts. They said, "Thank you for having conversations that will help people grow and think beyond stigmas and misinformation. Thank you for the kind words. 5-star reviews like yours help us to continue spreading autism awareness and acceptance around the world. If, like Izzy, you're finding value in Autism Knows No Borders, please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts." And now, back to the conversation. So what have you learned about yourself from running your own business?
I think I've learned that I'm more capable than I would have thought. I've been able to successfully create a brand and just learn that I can be independent, I think, on my own, because growing up, I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to be by myself, just from the things that I dealt with on a daily basis due to autism. Not that I knew it at that point. And being able to run my own business, I think, yeah, has given me a confidence boost that, like, hey, yeah, like this is awesome. I'm doing something really cool. And it's made me grow up for sure. I started it when I was 19. And so I've had to, obviously ups and downs, and I've had bad things happen, and I've had to overcome those things and learn how to problem solve and get over it. And so, yeah, I think, it's made me realize that I'm capable, and it's turned me into a proper adult.
Nice. Could you share one of those challenges that you've had to overcome?
Sure. So, and I guess I wouldn't say this is just like a one-time challenge, but just dealing with things going wrong. So, like 2 years ago, I think it was Christmas 2020, obviously COVID was raging and the supply chains were off. And so my usually scheduled deliveries for my packaging were not going to get here on time, and people needed their Christmas orders. And I won't lie, I had a full-on meltdown because I was just so busy and stressed because I had just hundreds of orders to get out, and my packaging was not going to get there. And so I had hundreds of orders to fill, and I had nothing to put my dough in. And I just had a full-on meltdown because I was like, I can't go on. This is terrible. Everything's ruined. And after the meltdown passed, and this is the big differentiator from like when I was like a teen to now as a more mature adult, is I was able to pick myself up and say, we're going to go find different packaging, because at the end of the day, the customer wants what's in the packaging, not what the packaging is. And with the help of my parents, I was able to go get the packaging and then basically pull a very, very long day, like 13, 14-hour day, getting the orders filled. And if that had happened even a few years before that, with me not knowing I was autistic, I don't think I would have been able to overcome that challenge. And I could have gotten myself into a lot of trouble, because I'm not sure I would have been able to fulfill those orders and get people their Christmas gifts. And just being more mature, like I said, and then knowing that I'm autistic and knowing tools to overcome the meltdown and recover from the meltdown and get my mind right so that I could continue on, was just a huge game changer, because I understood what was happening, why it was happening, and how to overcome that. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I've had to overcome, in sense of just like timing and just sheer volume of things that I had to do. There's been other like little things that have gone wrong in like a similar way, or like, oh, the store is out of this ingredient or whatnot. But that was just like, I literally had one day to get these out. It was like the 20th of December. I needed to get them shipped. I needed to get them made. And I had absolutely no packaging. And I thank my parents and my boyfriend, because they, of course, helped me through that. But I'm proud of myself that I was able to pull myself out of the meltdown and actually get it done. Because like I mentioned, if I had not known I was autistic and didn't know why this was happening, I would have been angry at myself and just completely lost it and not been able to pick up the pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, got it. So, any tips for other autistic adults thinking of starting their own business?
Yes. So I'd say you gotta just believe in yourself. Like I mentioned, you can do anything you put your mind to. And there's so many amazing resources out there on the internet to help you start your own business. And you just have to find something you're passionate about and figure out how you can turn that into a business. So I really loved eating cookie dough. And I was like, if I like it, there's probably other people that also like it. So find something you're passionate about so that it's something that you want to do and you're not forced to do. And then, Google, hey, how do I start XYZ? What licenses do I need? What platform am I going to sell on? Is it a product or is it a service? And just kind of narrow that stuff down. So, because it can seem like such a huge, daunting task. And I'd say that's obviously for anybody really easy to get overwhelmed. But when you start breaking it down, do one thing at a time and make sure you praise yourself when you accomplish something. I'm the worst at doing that. I need to take my own advice. I'm so bad at doing that. But just to be like, if you pick a name, like be like, hey, good job, good name. Then go see if you can get that social media handle with that name or that URL with that name. And yeah, go from there. Just keep following little steps. Break it down, have like stuff you can check off, because like that's a feeling like incomparable to be able to check something off a to-do list. So write it down, check it off. I still do that when I'm making orders. I write down my orders and I check it off, because it just feels good. It's like a little confident boost throughout the day. So yeah, I'd say believe in yourself. You can do it. It may take you a little longer or be a little harder if you're autistic, but you absolutely can do it. And there's people out there who are willing to help you. I'm one of them. I'd love to help and just allow you to also live, with less anxiety and less stress and be financially independent and have a successful business.
Well, that's great that you're like a model for other people to
Oh, thank you.
have some inspiration and know that they can do it too. What are your goals for the future?
So for the future, I'd really love to keep bringing awareness to girls and females specifically on the autism spectrum, because we're so underdiagnosed. And my main goal when I started my YouTube channel and I made that first video that ended up going viral was, one, to help other girls in my situation where we're now into adulthood and we're wondering why we are the way we are, like what's wrong with us, quote unquote. because I had watched other people's YouTube videos that were explaining autism, and it helped me realize that I was on the spectrum. And I wanted to be able to give that same like validating feeling to other women. And then the second thing is I want to bring more awareness to what autism looks like in girls so that girls can get diagnosed at a younger age. Because if I can help a girl not have to go through what I went through and so many other women went through growing up unknowingly autistic, that would just be incredible. Because there's so many negative things that happened in my life that I have PTSD from because I didn't know I was autistic, that if I could help another young girl not have to go through those same things and just allow her and her parents and her family and friends understand how her brain works and give her tools to basically make life easier, I will do it. And so that's really what I'd love to do in the future, is start speaking publicly, public speaking, coaching, just helping people understand their autism or help them start their own business. Just, I definitely, as awesome as making cookie dough is, I think I have a greater purpose in life than mixing cookie dough all day. And so I really want to start focusing more on that and just focus on helping other autistic people live out their dreams and live a happier and easier life. So I haven't launched it yet, but I'm getting ready to launch a course on how to start your very own edible cookie dough business. It's been such a great business for me as an autistic woman, and I think it can allow so many other autistic adults to own their own business and make a living and not have to have a dreaded regular 9-to-5 job. And so I'm going to be launching those soon. They're written courses and video courses, and I can help you through the whole process in starting your very own online edible cookie dough business. And I'd be really excited to help you if you wanted to do something like that.
Oh, great. All right, Olivia, I'd like to close with one last question. What advice would you give to other autistic females, maybe some who were just recently diagnosed and are kind of going through that journey?
I'd say first, own your autism. There's nothing wrong with it. Be proud. Don't be ashamed of it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And start just reading books or watching videos about other women on the spectrum, because for me, that was very comforting to know that there was other people like me. Join a community online of other autistic adults so that you can have people who understand what you're going through and you can bounce, ideas or concerns off of them. You could vent to them because they'll literally know what you're going through. And again, that's a very validating feeling. But I'd say, I know it can seem scary, but in the end, it's a good thing because now you're able to know how your brain works and you can thus keep yourself out of situations that could be damaging to you. And I always like to say, like, you're the same person you were before. I'm the same Olivia I was before I was diagnosed. If you were diagnosed, you're the same person you were. If your child was diagnosed, the same child they were before. You just now have the knowledge and the tools to help you or your child live a better, happier, less anxious life. And I think just educate yourself, learn what your triggers are for meltdowns and what you don't like and do like, and don't be afraid to say no. I was always so bad at saying no to things before I was autistic. And when I was diagnosed, and this is going to sound kind of bad because I feel like I have an excuse now, kind of, because before I didn't understand, like, why did I not want to go out with my friends? I would lie. I would say, oh, something came up or I don't feel well. And now I can just be like, hey, my brain's a little tired. I'm not feeling it tonight. And if your friends are great people, they'll of course understand. And so, yeah, just stick up for yourself, because now you understand why you do things and why certain things are hard for you. So make sure you verbalize those things and don't be afraid to say, like, hey, I'm autistic. I struggle with XYZ. Like, maybe I don't want to do that, or I need extra time or whatnot. And people, because they're becoming more aware and more educated, they're going to understand. And if you have a friend or even family member that doesn't understand, there's nothing wrong with cutting them out of your life, because you got to put yourself first and make sure your mental health is a priority. And if, that person's not understanding or just don't care, that's not good for you. So put yourself first, learn about yourself, and yeah, don't be ashamed.
How can people learn more about you?
So I have a website. It's oliviahops.com, and you can go there, and I list my story on there, and I put all my links to my YouTube videos and my Instagram, and then you can learn all about the courses and coaching that I offer as well. But I'd say, yeah, go check out my YouTube videos if you really want to get to know me, because I have a good amount of those up on my channel now, and they're just funny little short videos that hopefully are educational as well.
Yeah, well, they're very engaging. I think you do a really good job with them.
Thank you.
So I'll be sure to put those links in our show notes so people can find you.
Okay, awesome.
All right, Olivia. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And I think it's really exciting what you're doing for the community and to spread awareness
Thank you.
so that younger girls can get the support that they need sooner than later.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much again for having me. This has been really fun.
Thanks for tuning in to Autism Knows No Borders. With more awareness of how autism might present differently for females, young autistic girls can get the right support at an early age. Like Olivia, are you a self-advocate willing to share your story and educate others? Or are you a family member hoping to support and empower your loved one? Or a professional seeking to hear directly from autistic voices and improve your practice? Whatever your role related to autism is, you can join our online global autism community to connect and collaborate with people all over the world. Sign up today at community.globalautismproject.org. Let's work together to transform how the world relates to autism. Thanks for listening. Take care.